ONGC fell, tracking the sharp sell-off in global crude oil prices. Other blue-chip laggards included Tata Steel, UPL, Hindalco, IndusInd Bank. Our global business editor Udayan Mukherjee joining us now. Udayan, what's your take on how we've really kicked off for the week? Treading water, it seems, just marginally higher. Markets seem to have soaked in most of the news from last week.
Hi Abha. Well, today was a stable start, but I think the underlying fabric of the market is still looking quite shaky, because if you look underneath, today the mid-cap performance was not good at all. The mid-cap index was down quite a bit. And, you know, within pockets, there are quite significant explosions which are happening. I mean, if you look at the metals pocket today, I think it's a little scary to see the way stocks like Tata Steel and Hindalco have collapsed over the last few weeks. I mean, Tata Steel just in the month of April was about 1400 and it's now down to 850. I think these kind of brutal falls in well-owned stocks in particular sectors may also be souring the mood quite significantly. So I think the market is still in very sticky terrain. And even technically, the fact that that base of 15,700, 15,800 on the Nifty, which held out for so long, and that has been broken quite conclusively last week. And that probably has weakened the technical fabric of the market as well, which is now yet to find a new low. So I don't know whether this week will bring forward one of those pullback rallies. It's entirely conceivable, because markets do get oversold from time to time. And in certain pockets and mid-caps and metals, it is looking a little oversold. Yeah. But I think overall, we are probably not done with the pain. Now, in which sequence the pain will follow is difficult to forecast, because the future cannot be foretold. But I do believe that the markets will seek even lower levels in the weeks and months to come. I have no way of knowing how much lower it can go. But the structure seems like one of those bear market structures where there are periodic relief rallies and then the market breaks down and forms a newer low. I think we are not done with that kind of a setup yet. So looking at the fundamentals and the fact that more earnings cuts are likely to follow over the next couple of quarters, I think it's probably the fact that this market will seek out lower levels before we are done with the pain. It doesn't look like the pain will be over anytime soon. Sanjay, good to speak to you after a long time. I mean, you're sitting at the epicenter of where the problem is. In India, everybody agrees we are not in such a bad place. But where you are today, in New York, that's where the real mayhem is going on. How much longer do you think it will take for the US to sort itself out, so we can get along with what was looking like a good enough economic trajectory for us back home in India? But the US is in the way. How long do you think it will need to deal with its own mess?
Thanks for having me over. Coming to your question, Udayan, I think US is in a very complicated position this time. And there are no easy solutions that are possible. I think time is the only thing that will sort out things. There isn't much which the policymakers or the central banker, the US Fed, Jerome Powell, can do much right now, because this time it's a bit too complex, given the fact that you've got these geopolitical problems, you've got a breakdown of the global economic order because of trade coming to a standstill for various reasons, whether the Ukraine war or before that the COVID, etc. So it's not just about inflation, it's about a lot of other things that have played out, and it's going to be very difficult for US to handle. And I think it's going to take time, probably a year or so, maybe more even, because there are some structural issues which have been kicked down the can. The can has been kicked down the road, and now it's like the cows are coming home. So US is not going to be able to sort out much in the near future. To cut a long story short, we need to figure out as to how the rest of the world deals with it.
Right. So they say the markets factor in all these things a bit ahead of the economic outcome. You just said that it will take another year to fix the problems. But we've been in this bear market for the last 7-8 months already. The prices started falling way before the bad news hit the headlines. So how much longer do you see this bear market continuing now? How much is in the price? And would you say there is 6 months of pain left, 1 year of pain left to go before we can start talking about another uptrend once again?
First, to be very clear upfront, it's very difficult to do crystal ball gazing right now. even when it comes to India, where one understands things a lot better than one understands in the US or Europe. I think our problems in India have got to do a lot with what's happening globally, and more so what's happening with regard to the Ukraine war, oil prices, global trade, those kind of issues. And then obviously linked to that are flows. My sense to try and come to a guesstimate on the figure that you asked, how many months more, or what is the price? I think about 60 or 70% of this negativity, the uncertain economic environment, the uncertain micro and macro issues, 60 or 70% of them already are in the price. And that's clearly reflected in a large number of pockets across the market, specific equity stocks, which have really been hammered down 50, 60%. But I think there are a few months of pain left, which I think would probably go on till about October or so. That's on the basic assumption being that we have some solution on the Ukrainian war, because Europe cannot live with these energy prices and these energy issues across the winter. So that's my basic thesis, that the Ukraine issue would sort out. If that sorts out, I think we might be better off with oil cooling down. A lot of outflows that we're seeing right now would be sorted out. We would have a decent monsoon. I think with these kind of things, these kind of assumptions in place, I would say by about September or October, we should be done with the worst, or probably this grinding phase of the market. We may now go into a consolidation, a time correction more than a price correction over the next few months. And that obviously will be painful, but that should end in October, I think.
Sanjay, you've always been so selective about, finding those value plays in the market. At a time like this, what would you advise getting into? Until a short while ago, of course, we were discussing banks. Does that still hold merit, and why?
Yeah, I think I find banks is a good place, and more so some decent PSU banks, like a Baroda or a Canada or a State Bank. Of course, disclaimer that I might own some of them and I'm biased. The reason being that most of these are not overowned or not owned at all by the FIs or institutional players, but are at compelling valuations with much cleaner balance sheets compared to what we were post GFC in 2008, 2009, or where we were in 2012-14. And also on ground, I'm seeing that lending practices that were followed in our first 10 or 15 years when I started business, that's from 95 to 2010, are not being followed anywhere. Way much cleaner, way much stricter diligence processes, even in the PSU banks. So that's what makes me a little positive on them. And I think the big story, once we have the market sorted out, are going to be good quality PSU banks ahead. Yes, we've had likes of HDFC Limited also not performing. The HDFC Bank merger is also a good development. So that would be a good place to really keep nibbling on as things decline. Because if you believe in the India trade, manufacturing, and the global China plus one or whatever you may throw at common audience, if you believe in that kind of a PLI and all those things, the biggest beneficiary of that has to be banks, because you ultimately need working capital and term financing.
Let's take a very quick break. On that note, we'll be back with more on the other side.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan accused Finland and Sweden of being like guest houses for terror organizations.
Maalesef bu hassasiyetimize hemen hiçbir müttefikimiz beklediğimiz şekilde ve ölçüde saygı göstermediler. Destek vermeyi zaten hiç söylemiyorum bile. PKK ve DAEŞ'in sınırlarımıza dayandığı bir dönemde ülkemizdeki hava savunma sistemlerinin sökülüp götürüldüğü günleri unutmadık.
In order for a country to join the NATO alliance, unanimous approval of all 30 current members is required, and this might stall the process of Finland and Sweden's acceptance to NATO. Turkey has been one of the oldest members of NATO. It joined the alliance in 1949, right after it was formed, and Turkey had the group's second largest army. It has traditionally been supportive of NATO's expansion. It has also spoken in favor of Ukraine and Georgia joining NATO. Turkey has a problem with Sweden and Finland's perceived support of the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, or the PKK. The PKK seeks an independent state in Turkey. It has been in an armed struggle with the country for decades and has been designated a terrorist organization by Turkey, the United States, and the European Union. According to Turkey's state-run media, Sweden and Finland have refused to extradite 33 people wanted by Turkey.
Welcome back. You're with us here on Business Today. Even as protests continue over the centre's Agnipath short-term recruitment plan for armed forces, the big boys of the business world are already eyeing the Agniveer talent pool. Not only has India Inc. come out in support of the scheme, they've promised jobs to Agniveers as well.
Trains cancelled. Massive traffic jams. Arson and rioting. The Agnipath storm rages on. The government, however, is standing its ground in face of all attacks from protesters and the opposition. But now the government has some backup, with India Inc. not only declaring its support for the recruitment scheme, but also promising to open up its doors to Agniveers 4 years from now. Mahindra Group Chairman Anand Mahindra said the company will recruit the capable young people trained under this scheme. The business tycoon said that with leadership, teamwork and physical training, Agniveers provide market-ready professional solutions to industry, covering the full spectrum from operations to administration and supply chain management.
But it just isn't enough.
Not only Mahindra, many from the world of business have hailed the Agnipath scheme. Tata Sons chairman N. Chandrasekharan also backed the scheme, saying it will make available a very disciplined and trained workforce for the industry, including the Tata Group. TVS Motors Managing Director Sudarshan Venu believes Agniveers will play a key role in furthering economic growth and strengthening society in the coming years. Industrialist Sajjan Jindal is of the view that disciplined and educated Agniveers will be a boon to organizations. Industry bodies FICCI and ASSOCHAM have also welcomed the path-breaking decision by the government.
This would mean a right blend of youth and experience in the armed forces, and this would be a fabulous opportunity for the youth of the country to serve the nation. And once they have stepped out as Agniveers, this would become a great talent pool for the corporations like ours.
Yes.
Yeah, as CEO and MD of Hindustan Unilever, I would love to recruit trained, passionate, disciplined and skilled people.
One of the first to recognize the importance of Agniveers was industry veteran Baba Kalyani, whose company Bharat Forge tweeted that it will find a ready pool of highly motivated and disciplined resources having a sense of nationalistic fervor with a can-do spirit. The unique public-private partnership has turned the uncertainties which youth had into an ocean of opportunities, probably enough to cool the rage boiling across the nation. Meanwhile, the selection process of Agniveer kicks off from the end of this month. Bureau Report, India Today.
Air India is reportedly preparing for one of the largest aircraft deals in history. News reports claim that the airline, now owned by the Tata Group, is considering the purchase of as many as 300 narrow-body jets. The order will give Air India some much-needed muscle to win back passengers from market leader Indigo.
Air India is spreading its wings again, and the Maharaja is looking to take his crown back as the king of the Indian skies. Just 5 months after acquiring control of the national airline from the government, the Tata Group is reportedly engaging the afterburners to regain Air India's lost glory. According to reports, Air India is considering ordering as between 200 and 300 new airplanes. The order could comprise the Airbus A320 family or the Boeing 737 models, or it could be a mix of both. Sources say a deal of 300 Boeing's 737s could be worth more than $40 billion, although discounts and staggered payments do happen in such large purchases. This will be the first order from Air India after its order for 111 aircraft in 2016. The alleged corruption in that order during the tenure of the UPA government is cited as one of the reasons for the airline's financial troubles. The order, if placed, will be one of the biggest in the global civil aviation space. While the Indigo mega order for 730 Airbus single-aisle aircraft remains the biggest, the proposed Air India order will be a boon for the aircraft manufacturing industry in the post-pandemic era. For Boeing, snagging the Air India order in particular will be a major coup, as Airbus enjoys a nearly monopoly in India. Indigo, Go First, Vistara, Air Asia India all use Airbus aircraft, with Just SpiceJet flying Boeing 737s. The news comes even as there was a talk last week of Air India readying for a big Airbus A350 order to strengthen its global route portfolio. The airline currently uses Boeing 777s and 787 Dreamliners for its long-haul flights. It had recently announced the retirement of its 747 fleet, marking an end of an aviation era. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
The recently concluded ministerial conference of the World Trade Organization saw India score a crucial win on the right to protect and subsidize low-income fishermen, along with the interests of farmers and small business owners. The exemption on fisheries subsidies is for a 4-year period to start with and was a hard-fought battle for India, which offers a small subsidy of around 1,500 rupees annually to its fishermen. That's a fraction of the massive multi-$1,000 subsidy offered by Nordic countries and other developing nations to their heavily mechanized fishing industry. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, who along with the official delegation fought hard on this front, had this to say on India at the WTO. Listen in.
कम विकसित देशों के साथ भेदभाव ना हो, उनको भी बराबर का मौका मिले, उनका भी भविष्य उज्जवल होने के लिए उनको समय मिले, उसका प्रदर्शन हमने WTO की MC12 में देखा। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय समझौते जो मिनिस्टरियल कॉन्फ्रेंस के माध्यम से निकले हैं, वो कई वर्षों के बाद WTO ने इतने सारे निर्णय किए हैं। वैसे तो स्टेटमेंट भी 7 साल के बाद पहली बार WTO की मीटिंग के बाद निकल पाए। कई सारे विषयों पे प्रगति हुई है, कई सारे विषयों पे निर्णय लिए गए और लगभग हर निर्णय में भारत की छाप दिखती है, भारत अग्रसर दिखता है, भारत की बात उसमें प्रमुखता देखने को मिलती है और लगभग जिन जिन विषयों पे भारत की कोई ज़रूरतें थी या चिंताएं थी, हम 100% सफल हुए हैं अपनी बात रखने में, अपनी बात को मंजूर कराने में और आगे के लिए हमारे मछुआरों का, हमारे किसानों का, हमारे सूक्ष्म लघु और मध्यम उद्योग यानी MSME सेक्टर का, गरीबों का, हर एक की जो चिंताएं थी उसको दूर करने में और हर एक के लिए एक आगे अच्छा उज्जवल भविष्य बने उसको सुनिश्चित करने में भारत पूरी तरीके से सफल हुआ है.
And here's what else is making news in the corporate world. While insurance behemoth LIC has been on a downhill, tanking more than 30% since its listing on the exchange, JP Morgan India feels the market treatment of LIC has been unfair. The global brokerage has initiated coverage on LIC shares with overweight with a target price of 840 rupees. Vedanta plunged 12% in trade today after the company put on sale its copper plant in Tamil Nadu. Vedanta has invited expression of interest for its Tuticorin-based smelter, which has been shut since mid-2018 following a state government order. The country's largest car maker, Maruti Suzuki, has announced opening of bookings for the all-new hot and techy compact SUV Brezza. The new Brezza will be launched at the end of the month. Customers can pre-book it with an initial payment of 11,000 rupees. India's newbie cryptocurrency investors may have been spared most of the pain of the recent $2 trillion crypto meltdown thanks to a very unlikely source, the central government. The central government and the Reserve Bank of India were being portrayed as the spoilers of the crypto party after the draconian crypto measures announced in the budget. Now it turns out India's policy crackdown on cryptocurrencies earlier this February may have saved investors from the heavy losses of May and June.
I propose to provide that any income from transfer of any virtual digital asset shall be taxed at the rate of 30%, 30%.
Budget 2022 and 23, one of the watershed moments of the Indian crypto industry. Investors and market players who were expecting their trades to be legalized got a nasty jolt instead, finding their profits go up in taxes. The outcry was deafening, with doomsday predictions and fears that the nascent sunrise industry and mines leaving India for crypto-friendly jurisdictions. In hindsight, however, it is clear that the Indian government's February crackdown may have saved investors from losing their shirt in the subsequent bloodbath. On the day of the budget of February 1st, the world's most popular cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, was trading at $35,000, having fallen from a high of $67,000 in November last year. By April 1st, the beginning of the financial year, it had risen to around $47,000 before plunging to a two-year low of $18,000 this weekend. The period has seen over $2 trillion investor wealth wiped out. Values of several cryptocurrencies have vanished into thin air. A number of crypto exchanges and decentralized finance exchanges have restricted investor withdrawals.
जो इन्वेस्टर्स क्रिप्टो करेंसी में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं उनको ये माइंड में रखना चाहिए कि जो भी वो इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं वो उनके खुद के रिस्क पे कर रहे हैं. दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग एट देयर ओन रिस्क. उनको ये भी माइंड में रखना चाहिए ये जो क्रिप्टो करेंसी है इसका कोई अंडरलाइंग नहीं है, नॉट इवन अ ट्यूलिप.
So did this and other similar warnings save Indian crypto investors some pain? Zerodha CEO Nitin Kamath thinks the crypto tax announced in the budget inadvertently helped Indian investors from heavy losses. The CEO of the stock trading platform highlighted that as a result of crypto tax, retail interest in crypto markets significantly fell. He further added that if not the taxation, Indian investors would have ended up trying to buy the dip and averaging down, getting trapped in the cycle.
There were three main announcements related to cryptocurrencies in the latest union budget. A flat 30% tax on all gains, a 1% TDS on all transfers, as well as no set-off or carry-forward of losses. This led to a massive decline of trading volumes across all KYC-compliant crypto exchanges in India. There was much bad blood about it then. But now those investors might be thanking their stars as well as the Mai Baap Sarkar for scaring them away from the crypto markets. This was Akanksha Chaturvedi for Business Today TV.
That's where we leave it on the show today. Thanks so much for watching.
The global oil market has been reconfigured after the Ukraine-Russia war. For instance, energy-hungry Europe relied a lot on Russian oil, but after their boycott, African suppliers have stepped in. Now, Moscow has shifted its focus to supplying its crude to Asia after feeling the might of heavy Western sanctions. This very instance of supply reshuffle has shaken the global oil trade. In fact, the shock is even bigger than the United States of America's shale revolution, which significantly increased its production of oil and natural gas. And Russia might just be lucky in the shifting supply chain as long as Asia, India and China in particular, keep buying its crude at a steep discount. Experts are saying that Russian exports were back to pre-invasion levels. Oil prices even stabilized from $139 a barrel to $110 a barrel. So if the expert analysis is to be factored in, the EU ban on Russian oil will not hurt Moscow as long as the Asian demand is there. The only way the Asian connection can be severed is through diplomatic pressure on Asian buyers by the West.
You are watching India Today.
Big breakthrough in Moosewala murder. Gangster who killed singer arrested. Hand grenades recovered from gangster. Two main shooters arrested by Delhi police. Mega India Today exclusive.
In a major breakthrough today, the Delhi Police Special Cell took into arrest three main shooters in the chilling murder of famed Punjabi singer Sidhu Moosewala. Cops are saying that the musician was gunned down with an AK-47. And sources are now telling India Today that Moosewala survived 8 murder attempts before.